We all know the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, a tale of magic, a poisoned apple, and a charming prince. But behind this beloved fairy tale lies a much darker reality: the brothers. Grimm didn't invent their stories. They collected them from the folk traditions of places like Germany's Harz Mountains, where mining was a brutal way of life. The dwarfs of legend weren't magical creatures. They were children, sent into the mines to toil in unimaginable conditions. Their small stature wasn't a fantasy, but a tragic result of malnutrition and relentless labor. The Seven Dwarfs, with their picks and lanterns, are a sanitized version of countless real children who descended into darkness each day. They weren't singing to work, they were fighting for survival. Their lives were filled with danger, hunger, and the constant threat of collapse. The fairy tale we cherish is, in truth, a ghost story. Understanding this hidden history gives the tale a new solemn depth. The dwarfs become symbols of a lost generation, children whose suffering has been repackaged for entertainment. By looking past the whimsical surface, we uncover the truth. We honor the memory of the real children whose silent sacrifice is woven into one of the world's most famous tales. Child labor in mining stretches back centuries, from medieval Europe to the Industrial Revolution. Children as young as 5 worked full-time in mines across England, Germany, and Wales, performing grueling, dangerous tasks. The youngest sat alone in darkness for hours as trappers, opening and closing ventilation doors. As they grew, they hauled heavy coal carts, often crawling on all fours through cramped tunnels. These were not isolated cases, but a widespread, systemic exploitation. Childhoods traded for the coal, tin, and silver the world demanded. Children were the preferred laborers in mines for cold, practical reasons. Their small size let them crawl through narrow seams and reach places adults couldn't. They were cheap, paid a fraction of an adult's wage, and easily replaced. Families in poverty had little choice. Sending children to the mines meant survival. The system expected their lives to be short, crippled by black lung and malnutrition. Many never lived long enough to demand better. The folklore of small, pale figures emerging from the earth was rooted in these real stunted children. They weren't born small. The mine made them so. This was not malice, but a chilling pragmatism that valued profit above all else. Life above ground offered little respite for child miners. Families lived in cramped, company-owned cottages, isolated and dependent on the mine for everything. Rent was deducted from wages, keeping families in perpetual debt and under the owner's control. Sanitation was poor, disease rampant, and education non-existent. Generations worked and died in the same mines, trapped in a cycle of poverty. The company store charged inflated prices, ensuring earnings flowed back to the owners. This was a world away from the fairy tale cottage. No warmth, no comfort, just coal dust and exhaustion. Their suffering remained invisible to the outside world, their lives as dark as the tunnels they worked in. Mining disasters exposed the true cost of this industry. Hundreds of lives lost at once, many of them children. The Hartley Colliery disaster in 1862 trapped and suffocated over 200 men and boys. The youngest was just 10. The Oaks Colliery explosion killed 361, including dozens of young boys. In the US, the Avondale mine fire claimed 110 lives, all asphyxiated. These weren't freak accidents, but the result of a system that valued production over safety. Each disaster left behind devastated communities and forced society to confront the brutal reality beneath their feet. The names of these mines became synonymous with the urgent need for reform. For a child miner, the day began before sunrise with a meager meal and a walk to the pit head. Descending into darkness, they worked 10 to 14 hours in air thick with coal dust. The youngest endured isolation as trappers, Older children hauled heavy carts, their bodies contorted in cramped tunnels. The work was relentless, spines curved, muscles ached, and lungs filled with dust. Accidents were common: crushed fingers, broken limbs, and deadly gas explosions. When their shift ended, they emerged exhausted, faces blackened, with little energy for anything but sleep. This was their childhood, a monotonous cycle of danger and toil. Education and joy were out of reach. Their lives were a stark contrast to the whimsical world of the fairy tale. The reality was darkness, danger, and lost hope. The seven dwarfs of folklore are echoes of real child miners, small, pale, and aged by labor. The fairy tale softened their suffering, turning stunted children into mythical beings and their grim work into cheerful gem mining. But real stories and public outcry after disasters like Hartley forced change. Reformers used child miners' testimonies to campaign for new laws. The Mines and Collieries Act of 1842 banned women and young boys from underground work, a first step toward reform. These children's suffering fueled a movement for modern labor laws and safety regulations. Their legacy is not just a fairy tale, but a profound shift in our collective conscience. They are the unnamed heroes who inspired both a timeless story and a sacred world. When we remember the seven dwarfs, we should remember the real children they represent. Their sacrifice helped build a more compassionate world for generations to come.